No.
What? Why do I feel like I'm violating a copyright or something? we're
You might
we're
be.
trying to brainstorm some theme music.
No, we're not.
No,
Mm-mm.
I bet you want some like reggaeton or
No,
some
of course
salsa.
not. Of course not. Not for the Bible.
It's not appropriate. I was just
It's.
about to say you read my mind. I guess we are on the same page of
We
one
are.
mind of one accord. You
Okay.
see, I've been, yeah, you like that. You just jealous that would be in that word. Anyhow, guys, welcome to Bible Overthinker. We have questions. God,
Has patience.
He has patience,
Yeah.
lots of patience.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? As I think about it, I'm going to be asking God a lot of questions.
Once we go there.
Yeah, once we go up there, because I have a lot of questions
Mm-hmm.
for sure, just like most people.
Mm-hmm.
But one time, just to give you an example of how many questions I tend to ask, one time I was working a job, doing a training, and they told me that I was not allowed to ask any more questions.
Maybe he will say the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. No more. Time's up.
Be still, my son. Anyhow, guys, thank you for joining us again. Last time we talked about light before the sun. That was a very interesting conversation, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it was.
I was actually posting the same question on some, Bible study and theology groups on Facebook. And this one guy had a very interesting theory about that. He
Mm-hmm.
said actually it's called sonoluminescence. And that's when God's voice actually produce heat and light at the same time because they're both of same form of energy, or they're both a form of energy. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that's very sophisticated.
Smart people.
He put a lot of thought into it. Like, hey man, are you busy during the next episode? Let's give you a call or something. You can make a guest experience appearance or
Appearance, yeah.
something like that. But yeah, it was a very interesting conversation. I think we both agree that the light came from the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one challenge of Genesis. It really, because we've been taught to think in terms of what do you call it? Just the natural. I was going to say the anti supernatural, but like when you think about it, we've pretty much been indoctrinated to not think in supernatural terms.
Mm-hmm.
And this book is trying to teach us truths from the perspective of the supernatural. And so we kind of have to approach it with a mindset that we're supposed to be looking at this through the lenses of the supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about that? Thinking about Genesis, reading Genesis throughout your life, that this is not necessarily a science textbook.
No, not really. I don't think like that.
Yeah.
But
It's
I now
yeah, because you're married to the Bible overthinker.
pretty much, yeah.
Anyhow, let's get going with this episode. So today we are in Genesis chapter 1 still, but this time we're going to focus on verses 6 through 8. And this is a very interesting topic. You want to take a guess as to what it's about? You
A
can't.
few momento.
Oh my gosh, you always have to be so fancy.
I
Are you
am.
trying to show me up or something with
No,
all this sophisticated Spanish and stuff?
I mean it is the same word, just pronounced differently. So
How you say el firmamento?
el firmamento.
El firmamento. No estoy enfermo.
No, you're not. El
You
firmamento.
like that Duolingo, girl? Yeah, you like that Duolingo?
It's
That Duolingo be kicking
not
in.
very effective.
Sometimes I just go autopilot. I just go that Duolingo mode.
Please don't.
Anyhow, let us read. Starting at verse 6, and we're reading from the New King James Version. Then God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day. Now, let me ask you this honestly, babe.
Mhm.
You've probably heard this verse or read this verse millions of times throughout your life.
Mhm.
Have you ever stopped to think about this verse at all?
About the waters on the waters with the
Yeah,
waters? Not really. It's
yeah.
a lot of water.
It's a lot of water.
Mhm.
I remember the first time I read this, I think I was like maybe in middle school.
Mhm.
And I was fascinated. I was like, first of all, I didn't even know what firmament meant. I was like looking up dictionaries and Webster. You remember those old school dictionaries back in the day? You actually
Mhm.
had those thick things you could kill somebody with. I had to look it up. I was like, firmament. I looked it up and I said, man, I still don't understand. But this is a very interesting verse. And I think that it's very easy to gloss over this, but there's a lot that's being said. Essentially, what scripture is saying here is that we go back to Genesis 1 2, in which, we have just water, just like this unformed water
Mhm.
everywhere.
Mhm.
And God is molding it and shaping it, like a potter or an artisan. And here he is creating the firmament. But what's very interesting when you look at the Hebrew, it comes from the word rekia. I wish I could say it fancier than that. How would you say it in Spanish?
Trakia.
Man, that doesn't sound much better. Sorry. You let me down, Marlen. I have high expectations for you.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't speak whatever. What is that, Greek?
No, that's Hebrew.
I don't speak Hebrew.
I was listening to how like this like old time scholar pronounced it. It's like rakia, rakia. I was like, wow. I wish I could say
Rekia.
rakia.
Okay. Okay.
But it's a very interesting word because it kind of carries this notion of something being hammered, like metal or gold,
Mhm.
like you're like fastening it, like kind of gold plating.
Mhm.
And so it has like this material aspect to it. And when you really do some deep diving into like the people of the time, so the Jews were, I just learned this today. So Noah had three sons. I did learn that part today. You're like, I'm
Uh-huh.
glad you learned something new there, Anthony. So Japheth, Shem, and Ham. And you know how you ever heard the word Semitic before?
No.
So we use the word Semitic to refer to, like kind of like a language family, Arabic,
Mhm.
Hebrew, Syriac, Aramaic, all that stuff. But did you know that that word Semitic actually comes from Shem? And so a lot of these nations in the Middle East, they actually come from Shem,
No.
one of
What's
one of
that?
one of Moses' sons, Shem.
Okay.
So when you look at the genealogy of Shem and you do like the tracing of it, um, a lot of these nations they trace back to Shem. Isn't that interesting?
That's very interesting.
So the reason why I bring that up is I actually don't know quite why I brought
I was.
that up.
I was wondering.
Right? How does this tie in? But I think my point. Oh, here's my point. So these people they kind of developed a very similar view of like the universe and
Mhm.
the supernatural because they all come from the same person in a sense. And so even outside of the ancient Israelites, people around them also believed that the firmament was a solid dome,
Okay.
which is why that word rekia refers to something that's solid and that's kind of like hammered, and into like
Like
fashion into a shape.
shaped. Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
shaped. That's a good
Mhm.
way to put it. And so it's fascinating to me that they because had like when you're a kid and you looked up into the sky before you learned any type of science.
Mhm.
Was that your first thought that it was a solid dome up there?
No, like I said, I don't think like that. I.
You're probably right. I'm not sure if I thought that either. But
Yeah.
it's very interesting that they actually thought that the sky was a solid dome
Mhm.
and that it was keeping water from coming in.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of like the thought here, and it kind of goes back to how we're supposed to view Genesis. Are we supposed to look at this as a scientific textbook, or are we supposed to look at it as a text that's pointing to truth, even though we may not know how completely it's, well, I wouldn't say completely, but we don't fully understand the truth that it's pointing to, in a sense, because we know from modern science that the atmosphere is not solid. There's nothing
Mhm.
solid about it. And so it really raises a question of scientific accuracy. And there are some believers, some scholars, some pastors that say that when you read Genesis, you're not supposed to read it from a modern scientific lens,
Mhm.
because that wasn't the goal, of the textbook, not the textbook, but that wasn't the goal of the book, to
Mhm.
teach science.
Mhm.
Um, in fact, a lot of people would say that the goal of Genesis was to battle against pagan beliefs around them. What do you think of that?
I don't know. I don't
You,
know what to think.
yeah. What do you think of them believing that the firmament was solid?
Who's they? I feel
Semitic
like
people,
I feel like
Near
what they
Eastern
the
people.
conclusion they came with.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you think that was a reasonable conclusion?
I think it was reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair. Like, if you don't have modern scientific instruments, I guess that's fair. But the question that we have today before us is, the text is referring to waters above the firmament, but we know that there aren't any waters above the atmosphere. And so the question is, how are we to make sense of what this passage is trying to teach us?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And I guess we're going to have to try to figure out the answer. And so what's interesting is that one verse that refers to this is Psalms 148, verse 4. It says, "Praise him, you heavens of heavens, and you waters above the heavens." So that's one text. And then later on, we're going to see in Genesis 7:11, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month. That's so precise. On a day, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. Have you
Mhm.
ever heard that phrase before? Windows of heaven?
Yes, and
Very, very popular.
songs and like
Hmm.
prayers.
Very, very popular phrase throughout
Mm.
Christian history.
Mhm.
So this phrase, windows of heaven, occurs 5 times in the Bible.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is that every instance in which it occurs, it refers to some type of supernatural event.
Gotcha.
So here it's referring to the flood.
The flood. Yeah.
The next passage connected to this is in Second Kings,
Mhm.
in which says that there's a famine on the land, and I believe it's prophet Elisha tells the people that rain is coming. And a guy doubts him and said, even if God opens up the windows of heaven, shall any of these things be that you're prophesying? And it did happen. God
Mhm.
allowed it to rain. And then the third is the very popular, phrase of it in Malachi, when God says, if you trust me, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, I will open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that you don't have room enough to receive.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a huge hint that every time it occurs in context of supernaturalism.
And creation.
Yeah, I guess in a sense.
You
Yeah.
can connect it back to it.
Yeah. And you know what? I just thought about something. It also occurs in the context of, judgment, either
Yes.
like liberation from judgment,
Yeah.
or, judgment itself. And I just kind of thought about that. Here's another passage that kind of connects to it a little bit in Revelation 4:6. Before the throne, there was a sea of glass, like crystal. And in the midst of the throne and around the throne were four living creatures full of eyes in front, in, and back. Would you like to see those creatures, babe?
No.
You know, I had AI create an image of the four living creatures, and I was freaked out.
They sound freaky.
With
They sound
eyes
weird.
everywhere.
No.
It's like we're watching you. Hey, I see you trying to sneak up on God. We're watching you. So let's go over some theories about this. And just kind of thinking and studying this, for me, and let me know if this is a cop out. I feel like, given that the phrase windows of heaven occurs in supernatural contexts, I wonder if the waters are not physical waters at all, but supernatural waters. You think that's a cop out?
No, that's how it sounds to me as well.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it has nothing to do with physical water or water as we know it.
Yeah. I think the pushback that a logical person would have is, well, when you look at this passage in Genesis, he's talking about physical stuff, physical creation, physical waters that he's separating.
Mm-hmm.
So why would he talk about the waters beneath being physical and then the waters above being supernatural? You know,
Yes.
that's the one pushback.
Well, God can do whatever He wants.
God can do whatever he wants. So that's one theory.
Mm-hmm.
Another theory, I want you to tell me what you think of this. Well, I mean, there's nothing silly about it, but it's just a scientific, theory that this
Mm-hmm.
is just an imperfect way of referring to the atmosphere. So it's just kind of like from scientific ignorance, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically they don't know what they're talking about. They're trying their best and talking about the atmosphere.
So they thinking that we are smarter now than they were
Oh, for
before,
sure. For sure.
just because they didn't know science.
For sure. And what's crazy is that when you study like archaeology and stuff, there are things that the ancient people knew how to do that
Yes.
we still cannot figure out
Exactly.
how they did it. Like the Great Pyramids. We
Mm-hmm.
have no clue. Like, even with our modern equipment, we cannot even replicate that. Not to that precision.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's actually a term used to refer back to that. It's called modern chauvinism, in which you think that ancient people were just, kind of goofy hillbillies with silly theories, and we are the enlightened ones.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Of
So
course.
that's what that theory is about. And a third theory is a very interesting theory. It's called the canopy theory. Okay, stay with me. Stay with me. So in this theory, it's very popular among younger creationists like myself. I don't believe in this theory, but it's called the canopy theory. And a lot of people in this camp believe that back then, God created a layer of ice to surround the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it created extra oxygen, and it explains why animals grew so big back then. And yeah, that's the theory. What do you think of that? It's called I don't even know how that connects to canopy though. What do you think of that layer of ice?
What?
God formed a layer of ice. Let's go back and read it. Did it say ice? I mean, ice is technically water.
Yes, but where is that?
In the text. So they're saying that the waters above are consist of ice essentially. Divided waters which were under the firmament from waters which were above the firmament. The waters above the firmament would be ice. What do you think of that theory?
It'll be very, very cold.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough science to refute that or agree with that.
Maybe the sun melted.
Well, they believe that when God opened up the windows of heaven in Genesis 7, that's when he destroyed the canopy. And the melting of the ice is what produced so much water. Well, helped to contribute to the flood.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's definitely an interesting theory.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. Now let's go with some before we end. Your favorite part.
Yes.
Strange theories by strange names. We don't have any strange names this time, just strange theories. But the first theory is called celestial plumbing theory.
Okay, that is
Okay,
a weird name for a theory.
a 19th century interpreter. I don't think I think the name is unknown. It's just like kind of a theory that popped up. He believed that this was referring to God's celestial plumbing system. And for famines,
Uh-huh.
you can explain famines by God turning off the waters. And then when God, when there's a lot of water, God decides to turn on the
Turn
water.
it on and off whenever.
Just turn it off. So, what do you think about the celestial plumbing theory?
No, that's a big no.
Wait, did they even have plumbing back in the 19th century?
I don't know, but clearly he knew about it.
Oh, I guess that's like kind of like a modern day framing of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's another interesting theory, cosmic aquarium theory. So in Revelation, it talks about there being a sea of glass,
Mm-hmm.
under God's throne, and there are a lot of people throughout history that believe that there was that glass was sitting on top of the heavenly waters. So it's kind of like God had like a cosmic aquarium under him. What do you think of that theory?
That's crazier than the other one.
I think they just focus on that C part and not the glass part. So, yep. All right, good stuff. So, overall, what do you conclude the waters above to be?
I think water can turn to different forms,
This is true.
so maybe that's what happened.
Your guess is as good as mine because I am genuinely stumped on this one. And hey, guys, if you have a good theory, if you have some thoughts on this, we would love to hear your thoughts. So leave them in the comments
Mm-hmm.
because I'm stumped. I mean, really, I want to say that these are referring to supernatural spiritual waters, but I feel like that's such a cop out. It's like saying that, oh, there's just things that we just don't understand. It's a divine
But
mystery.
it is true.
Yeah, I mean, I personally believe. I
Mm-hmm.
guess what I'm trying to say is that it's not it's not a satisfying theory for me. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the text, like when you read the entirety of Scripture, seems to point to that because everywhere you see the phrase "windows of heaven,"
Windows of
it
heaven.
occurs in the context of judgment or release from judgment and supernatural provision, supernatural waters. Like some type of supernatural event.
I agree with that.
Yep. So I guess we will have to table this until heaven and ask
Mm-hmm.
God,
Mm-hmm.
what were those waters? Maybe we'll see them. Maybe we'll see the waters under the sea of glass.
And we don't need to ask anything.
We don't need to ask anything. Maybe he has like cosmic fish,
Oh
and
my
then
god. Don't start.
that's saying holy, holy, holy.
That makes it even weird. That's so weird, the whole scene. Okay.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening in to Bible Overthinker. Please let us know what you think in the comments, and we would love to hear your thoughts. You guys have a blessed one.
Adios.